Scott's got to sign it too, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to say.
Just make sure you're ready. Well, he's followed suit with us now.
All right, you're good to go. All right, sign that thing.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our brave men and women fighting all over the world for democracy and freedom. Also for our fallen police officers, and also for President Bush. Thank you very much.
The meeting tonight is for the conduct of town business by the town board. The public is invited to participate at the items marked on the agenda, public comment. During that segment of the meeting, if you have a question or comment for the supervisor, please raise your hand and wait to be acknowledged. Please state your full name and limit your remarks to 3 minutes. Thank you for your anticipated cooperation.
Thank you, Colleen.
Welcome.
Need a motion to approve the agenda, please?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Second. Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None being said, motion passed. Motion to approve minutes from the November the 26th, 2018 Town Board meeting.
Motion.
Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Authorize payment of the bills in the amount of $323,004.32. Need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Pay the bills. Tonight we have a presentation by, excuse me. So, I missed this one. Comments on the agenda. If anybody has any comments on the agenda. James, would you like to come up and address the board? This is just on the agenda. Good evening, James. How are you?
Thank you. I just want to ask if comments could be accepted after the presentation concerning the presentation.
What do you think, George? After the presentation or during the presentation? Which, after the presentation?
That's what I asked for. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jim. So we are welcoming PFJ Planning Associations that did the 9W corridor study. And Howard, would you like to introduce the
Yes,
presentators?
As Al said, we're about to finish up our Route 9W corridor study, which we've been working on for a couple of years with the Ulster County Planning Department. And before I turn it over to Ulster County Planning Department, I just want to thank the folks that were involved.
I don't think it's working.
Okay, is that better? Folks that were involved from the local group anyway. On the there was a technical advisory committee that worked with the consultant and with Ulster County, and I'd like to thank the folks that were involved, and that includes Michael Brooks, the superintendent of schools, Manny Couchy, who was here, there he is, from the planning board and as a businessman on 9W, Alan Koenig as a fireman, Bob Tronsolito from the Marlborough Fire Company, Tommy Corcoran, our code enforcement officer, Chief Kokoza, of course, our police chief, John Alongi and Gail Appler from the Highway Department. Thank you all. And this was a joint effort with Highland as well. A small portion of it also addressed a portion of Route 9W to Highland, so David Barton and Peter Brooks from Highland. And also DOT was involved, Chris Lee, Joe Hurley, Terry Donahue, and Robert Gaffney. So thanks to all those folks and all the people that attended some of the focus groups we had and did participate in the surveys. We want to thank you. So I'm going to turn it over now to Brian Slack, who's going to introduce the consultants.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Supervisor Lanzetta, and thank you, members of the Town Council, Town Board, for having us this evening. We're very pleased to present to you and to the public the results of the 9W Corridor Study. This has been an effort that has been taking place over the course of about the past 12 or 16 months or so. We had a short break over the course of the summer while we worked out some contractual issues, and we're happy to be wrapping things up at this point. The study is funded by the Ulster County Transportation Council, which is the metropolitan planning organization for Ulster County and the Kingston urbanized area. A benefit of having an MPO in Ulster County means that we can receive federal grants from the Federal Highway and Federal Transit Administration to do studies like the 9W Corridor Management Plan. And we've done a number of studies over the years in the town of Marlborough. Back in 2008, we did a hamlet plan for the hamlet of Marlborough, focusing on a number of very similar issues. And we decided to continue this effort, focusing now northward of the hamlet to the town line, all the way up to Blue Point Road. The reason being that was decided as an end point was because there is a significant development in the town of Lloyd being proposed, the Wine Village off of Blue Point Road. So that was the northern border of our effort. We do a lot of corridor management plans, studies of this scope, and we've done quite a few in the past. Typically, we look at a lot of the same elements of the highway system. We look at traffic volumes, we look at all the data, we look at the land uses on the roadway, and we look at safety and the crash history, and anything else that the town or other constituents are interested in us examining. This is an interesting study. We took a slightly different approach. It includes a few elements that I think are unique. We did, we had our consultants provide us with a detailed access management plan for businesses and properties and parcels along the corridor, which I think can really, over a long period of time, provide a great deal of insight and assistance to your planning board and your zoning board in helping to manage that corridor and encouraging property owners to put safer curb cuts in and manage traffic so you have safer turning movements and things of that nature. And we also did a road safety assessment, which is a very detailed site visit for your highest crash locations on the corridor, where we're out here during the daytime and during the evening hours looking at traffic movements to get a better sense of how the road functions and what improvements might actually work in the long run. So I don't want to give away the entire presentation. We're very fortunate to be working with George Equimar and his assistant, Laurent Rene, who are here tonight. Lauren's running the projector. George is a partner and principal at BFJ Planning, and it's been a real pleasure working with George and his staff on this study. They really provided a great deal of effort and a high quality of work. Before I turn the floor over to George, I just want to say that my director, Dennis Doyle, offers his regrets. He really wanted to be here tonight, but he did have surgery earlier today. Otherwise, he was actually thinking about coming, but I told him to stay home and rest up for the next meeting. Good idea. So, George?
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
Hey, George.
Good evening. Thank you, Brian. Good evening, everyone. We're glad to be back here and give you a short overview of our study, and then we open it up to comments and questions. I'll be happy to address those. I should just mention that in addition to Lauren and myself and the staff at the Ulster County Transportation Council, we also had Susan Blickstein helping us. She helped us with some of the outreach work, and also she was the one who helped us with pedestrian and bicycle improvements. Just a short overview, what's a corridor management plan? We basically look at this corridor, we're talking about a 6-mile corridor from south of the Marlborough hamlet to the beginning of the town of Lloyd. We tried to look at it as a kind of a global corridor, not just from a traffic point of view, but also from an aesthetic point of view, from a safety point of view, from capacity, and also economic impacts on the town. And so we do look at all the modes of travel. We don't, even though it is largely a highway, automobile corridor, there are elements today, and I think most of you have seen it, experienced it. There are pedestrians walking. I'm always surprised to see, even at night, seeing pedestrians walking along 9W. So we have to look at that, and we have to look at the bicycles as well, because it is an important element, at least for some of the locations in the corridor. So basically, we did a fairly detailed inventory, and I'm not going to go through the details. I think you have copies of the report with appendices. As Brian mentioned, we did do a detailed safety assessment with the help of the police chief, and we had a group of people also from New York State DOT going to individual locations where we have high crash accident rates to look at that in more detail. And then we projected future traffic volumes based on some of the growth that's happening, and developed recommendations and prepared a draft and final plan. The draft plan has been reviewed several times, including extensive comments from New York State DOT to make sure that what we recommend, is in line with DOT's policies. And that's not always easy, as you can imagine. DOT sometimes has very ambitious policies, but it's not, they don't necessarily follow it up. They don't necessarily have the money to pursue those. So we had a very active interaction with the Technical Advisory Committee. We had a very intense public engagement, and I recognize some of the people here tonight. We had 2 workshops. We had detailed focus groups with individual property owners, groups of property owners, where we asked for their input, their concerns, and their suggestions. We also had, we did intercept surveys where we intercepted people that were on their way to shopping or other destinations in the town to reach out to people that don't normally come to these workshops. So we wanted to hear opinions of people that are not necessarily involved on a more regular basis. So that's a general overview of the process. Based on our very first workshop, we asked for the objectives. What should be the objectives of this study? It's not our study, it's really a study for the town. So a big effort was made to hear back from the participants what the objectives should be. And this slide kind of summarizes them. The key was obviously, traffic safety is always an issue. And we do have some safety issues in this corridor. The speeds, people feel that the speeds are high. Too many people are speeding. There's concern about traffic congestion, primarily in the hamlet of Marlborough. That's the location where we have congested areas. And there are concerns about walking, pedestrian crossings. We heard that we had an injury last Friday in Marlborough. So these are issues that we try to resolve. We heard concerns or desires to see bicycling improved in conjunction with some of the tourism activities in the town, and then also the aesthetics along the corridor. It's like a lot of these corridors that are somewhat commercial. There's not always, it's not always the most aesthetic kind of environment. And there was we heard desires that we want to have this corridor being attractive so that in the long term, it helps the tourism industry, the tourism economy in the town. The next slide shows you an overview of corridor improvements, and we'll go through some of them. One of the key recommendations that we made in conjunction with, talking to the police chief, talking to the participants, even DOT, is a lane reconfiguration for the segment that today is 4 lanes wide. Of the 6 miles, we have 1.9 miles that are 4 lanes wide, and so that was a concern, and we'll talk about that. The other component was expansion of the pedestrian network, access management, and I'll talk about that. That's an important portion of a set of recommendations, and then the streetscape design. The lane reconfiguration basically focuses on that 4-lane segment that we have, 1.9 miles. There's 4 lanes. It generally does not have a shoulder. So it's one of the sections of Route 9W that does not have a shoulder. So that is an issue. So we developed general design standards to reconfigure it into a more traditional two-lane road with what we call protected left turn lanes. Rather than making the left turn out of a through lane and being risked to be rear-ended, as happens a lot, we recommend, that the road be reconfigured and provide protected left turn lanes. So we suggest a very standard cross-section of 9W from south all the way north, where we have a lane in each direction, northbound lane, southbound lane, plus then protected turn lanes that are much safer than what we have today. So the advantage of that is that we limit some of the speeding that's happening today. And the surveys that we did is, for instance, on the 4-lane segment, the percentage of people that were speeding beyond the speed limit was like 50%, whereas the other segments, the percentage of people that are speeding is more in the range of 10 to 20, 25% at most. So it is an issue that we saw. It's the fact that there are no shoulders is a problem. And so there we worked with DOT to come up with a plan that would provide a safer roadway where vehicles go at a more controlled speed and avoid the speeding that we see today. So you can see the graphics that we showed are, you have some very good examples of the Route 9W today where you have one lane in each direction. Lauren, if you can go back one slide, I just want to point out. There on the right, you can see a cross-section with a left turn lane in the middle and shoulders on the other side. That's a very safe arrangement, and it provides also the capacity that we need in the corridor. So there you see examples of what we consider as a good cross-section, a good alignment, and on the left in that photo is what you have today, which encourages people to speed more than they should be driving. Next slide. So the conceptual diagrams, we developed detailed drawings of that 1.9 segment that we transmitted to DOT with the hope that DOT, when they do the next repaving project, that they would restripe the road. Basically, the highway would remain, the road itself would remain the same width as it is today, but the lane configuration would be different in the sense that we would have shoulders all over for the whole length of the segment, and we would have left turn lanes at the intersection. So we would have very consistent shoulders, consistent cross-section, and protected left turn lanes. And basically, we maintain the pavement width as it is today. So we worked very hard with DOT to get DOT to hopefully, in the next time when they repave it, to change the lane configuration. The next slide, we talk about, there's obviously concern whenever we say, well, we're going to change that 4-lane segment that's 1.9 miles long. If we change it from 4 lanes to 2 lanes plus turning lanes, are we reducing the capacity of the road? Are we creating congestion along that segment? And the answer is no, because the 4-lane segment was never put in place because of a capacity reason. The traffic volumes today, if you look at the morning peak hour, the highest volumes are near the Marlborough hamlet, so much further south from the 4-lane segment. In the afternoon peak hour, the highest traffic volumes are north of the Milton Turnpike. So the segment that today has 4 lanes is not the segment that carries the highest volumes of traffic. So it is not needed for capacity purposes. And the real restriction in terms of capacity are the signalized intersections. For instance, the intersection of the Route 9W and Milton Turnpike, that is the restriction, or the signalized intersection, or the intersections that are in the hamlet, Marlborough hamlet, they are the real capacity constraints. So we're not changing the intersection of 9W and the Milton Turnpike. The lane arrangement that's at that intersection would remain the same. But further south, we would have a lane in each direction and protected turn lanes. and we would have still a passing lane in the northbound direction and one passing lane in the southbound direction. So there will still be the ability to pass, if you have heavy trucks that are sometimes less slower, there will still be the ability to pass trucks. So based on the analysis, we did detailed analysis, capacity analysis. We determined that the speeders would be controlled. What we call the people that are beyond the speed limit, they will be controlled. They will not be able to drive as fast as they are today. And that has very positive implications in the long term. It makes it easier to have pedestrian crossings at those locations where we do see pedestrians crossing, and will make, in the long term, will make the corridor safer and will also provide the capacity that's needed. I see skeptical looks here, but we can address it. And one of the benefits in the next slide is to have a consistent shoulders throughout the corridor. Shoulders are important from a safety point of view, from snow plowing point of view, and from a point of view that we do have bicycles. There's going to be more and more people that will want to bicycle, at least for certain sections along 9W. So that's a benefit that we would see with the reconfiguration. The next slide, we summarize some of the bicycle network improvements. We hear, especially in the Milton area, that there is a desire to improve bicycling, to encourage people. There are people that come here for weekend activities, that visit the farms or the wineries. There is a desire to make the area a little bit more bicycle friendly. So on some of the roads, not on 9W itself, we do suggest, as the picture shows here, what's called sharrows. And basically a sharrow alert, and that would be on North Street, South Street, North Road and South Road. A sharrow alerts the driver that the road is used by other users as well, and kind of encourages the drivers to pay more attention. The next slide is the high visibility crosswalks. That's again something that we see there are issues with some of the pedestrian crossings. Here you can see what we suggest at some locations, and that may not happen right away. Some of these improvements may be more long-term improvements. What's called a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. These are these very bright beacons that come on whenever a pedestrian pushes a button or a pedestrian activates through passive detection the lights. And those have been shown to improve pedestrian safety. There are locations in the Marlborough hamlet where we suggest those improvements. We also feel in the Marlborough hamlet there are opportunities to improve visibility. At that corner on the upper right photo, you can see this elevated sidewalk. We don't feel that the sidewalk is necessarily needed at that location. It's needed to enter the building on the side of West Street. So the report identifies certain improvements that can be done to improve pedestrian safety in the Marlborough hamlet and make it more pedestrian friendly. We suggest some bicycle routes, again in response to the people that participated in our focus groups and that were interested in improving bicycle tourism in the area, again, people visiting wineries or farms. We suggest intersection improvements, and the two key intersections is the Milton Turnpike intersection. That's a very important intersection. We see that in the long term that could become a roundabout. Would be a roundabout, and I mentioned long term because that's not an inexpensive kind of change. It obviously would need, financial assistance on the state part, but it would be a great point to mark the entrance into Milton. A roundabout has very high capacity. The delays are much shorter than traffic lights, and roundabouts have been shown to be much safer than traffic lights. So roundabouts typically reduce injury crashes by 70%. So that's the experience that we have with roundabout. So we saw that as a location for potential roundabout. It's not a short-term recommendation, it's more of a long-term recommendation. In the short term, we feel that the pedestrian crossings should be improved at that location. There are no pedestrian signal heads. And, you know, we stood out there observing traffic, observing people crossing. There are people crossing at that intersection. So that would be the short-term recommendation. Obviously, the Marlborough hamlet, you know, you have seen previous studies. There are opportunities, again, to improve the pedestrian crossing at that location. Land use and access management. Access management is an important element on a highway like 9W, which is a state highway, which is meant to carry, you know, traffic between different municipalities, you know, traffic that comes from Newburgh, you know, to Marlborough, on to Lloyd, and so on. It's meant to carry through traffic, and that function is very often in conflict with the access function, the cars that turn in and out of driveways, and so we need to, that creates a conflict and it creates a safety hazard. We have, you know, it's very clear when you look at the accidents along 9W, the more driveways that you have along 9W, the higher is the accident rate. So it is an issue that we have to try to manage, and one way to manage it is what we call access management. So if the town has an application, a developer wants to put in a new development, there are some techniques that can be done or should be done to manage the traffic, the access, so that it is safe, and so that we also minimize the amount of driveways, you know, through various access management techniques. So what we did is, for the whole corridor, we developed a series of maps. I think there are 12 different maps that show how each parcel that's along the corridor could be improved in terms of access management. Shared driveways and having a driveway on the side street, on the rear street, and so on and so on. That is important because it does improve, number one, the aesthetics, it does improve the safety along Route 9W, and obviously it does maintain also the development potential. You know, we're not trying to limit the development potential. And it's very difficult to do that. The state does not have the authority to ask a property owner, you know, to change access management. But this is a tool that we recommend for your planning board that they can use when they have an application for development of a particular site to improve the access management and the safety. The other side we did also in terms of streetscape improvements, in terms of, you know, primarily aesthetics and in some cases, you know, improving pedestrian friendliness. We looked at a number of sites where you have these very wide open driveways and it's not very attractive, where we suggest, you know, measures that could be undertaken to improve, you know, to have landscaping, have a more reduced entrance or driveway width, rather than having these very open driveways where cars can get in and out. So that's an example. One of the examples is the town's highway department, you know, that has this big open driveway, and that could be improved just, you know, by having a median, a little bit of green space, landscaping, and so on. And then managing future growth. Obviously, we all would like to see the growth happening as much as possible in the two hamlets. You know, that's where you would like to see the activity, the pedestrian improvements, and so on. But you also have the overlay district that we reviewed, and, you know, what we suggest is that for the overlay district, which is like this floating zone, if you want, that you restrict the uses, that you should not allow any uses in that overlay district that would compete with the hamlet themselves. So again, the priority should be the hamlets, you know, without necessarily restricting the rest of the development. In terms of the access management plan, we do recommend, you know, that your zoning code just refer to the access management plan. So if you have a developer, property owner who wants to develop it, at least they have to look at the access management recommendations, and then it's up to them to explain to the planning board whether they can or cannot undertake the access management, but it's important to show what could be done in an ideal situation. So that's an overview. I think the only other, what's next, I think we have there you have a link for the study if you want to look at the details of the study or the appendices. I think in terms of actions by the town board, we obviously would like to see the town board adopt the study and maybe adopt a resolution that would adopt the study. So it is a more official document. And the reason we say that is it's not that we're proud or so that you adopt it, but it's going to be important for you to interact with DOT. I think you, as you know, the town, the county, you need to keep the pressure up with DOT so that DOT, undertakes these improvements along this section of 9W. So that's an important element. It's frustrating, I think. I think for some of the members on the technical advisory committee, for us as consultants, to interact with the DOT, they don't have enough money. They don't have the manpower. They're very short on manpower. So we had a hard time getting, we did get participation, but not as much as we would have liked to see. So that's, I would say, our final recommendation. You have to keep the heat on New York State DOT. So I'll be happy to answer any questions and comments.
So I'll leave it open to the board first, and then we'll take questions from the public.
Yeah, I think on the one slide towards the last where it says, the recommendation would be to not, or avoid uses that compete with the hamlets. I mean, we don't want to compete with the hamlets, but we also, in our hamlets, we don't, we have a very tough time anytime somebody brings a project to us, whether, a new business, new cafe, restaurant, whatever it is, there isn't any parking in our hamlets anymore. I mean, both of the hamlets were basically designed around horse and buggies, now we have four-door pickup trucks and SUVs. So, I mean, to try to, that's one thing I don't like about that in there is avoid uses that compete with the hamlets. In my opinion, the corridor is the corridor. It's the business corridor as far as, I think the hamlets are going to be, it would be tough to grow our hamlets out. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks about that. I mean, I encourage businesses in the hamlets, and both hamlets are doing fairly well now. But I mean, that's the only one part of this I don't really agree with on that. So, that's all I got on it.
Yeah, I understand that, and we talked a lot about this. It's obviously we understand these issues. I mean, we see the hamlets as you mentioned parking. Milton has parking to some degree. I think it is an attractive place, has developed, and it has more potential. I mean, that's how we see it. And there's also the agriculture business, the winery business, the looks, the character that comes with that. So there's no easy answer. I recognize what you're saying, and I heard it, and we have to figure out, what is the best long term. We hope to look at, not just the next 2 years or 5 years, the next 10 years and 20 years.
I have a couple of questions. You want to do a single lane all the way through the hamlet, all the way to Milton up to Highland, Blue Point. Is that what you're saying?
Single lane, but there would be in the northbound, both directions, there would be a passing lane segment. Like today you have, when you drive north out of the Marlborough hamlet, you have a passing lane. That would remain. So we would have a passing lane.
How many would you do?
And there would be one northbound, and there would be a passing lane southbound.
But where they are now, or like you're talking about when you get over top of the hill and you come down, you make that into one lane.
Yeah, beyond the...
Going north.
Yeah. Okay. And before you get to the Milton Turnpike intersection, it would be one lane. For instance, if you look at the crashes at the Milton Turnpike, there's a large number of rear ends from the south. No rear ends there are some rear ends from the north, but many more from the south as a result of the high speed of that 4-lane segment.
I think it's a lot more to do than that, because I work right there on the corner. So I see the accidents that happen. But then you said about in that corner you would do a roundabout. Is that a jug handle you're talking about?
No.
What are you going to do?
No, a modern roundabout. We are now in the United States and other countries, we have developed what I would call a new traffic circle with very specific design principles. And federal government is encouraging them. The state, New York State DOT is encouraging them. The first one that was built is in Kingston, when you get off the thruway there. That's not necessarily a good example,
No,
because
I-
that's a 4-lane roundabout, and it was the first one. But it is safer than what was there before. And they're still safer than signalized intersections. People don't realize it. People, people when they are at a traffic light, they think they're safe because they get this easy message, green, red, walk, don't walk. It's like baby talk. And people, they think that that's safety. In fact, they're not safe. If you look at where are all our crashes happening, it's the Milton Turnpike intersection. That's the big crash location. So roundabouts, and that's why they have been successful, have been very successful because they improve safety, especially injury and fatality accidents, and they also are much more fluid. The delays are much shorter than at the signalized intersection.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you're saying there, but now, if you take the one-lane highway going south, probably takes you the longest time on that single lane. You say it's not going to cause that in here, but going south to Newburgh, you're just stuck there during those periods for 15 to 20 minutes stuck there on each intersection that you're talking about.
In Newburgh.
On the way to Newburgh on the same 9W, that is
Well,
a
no.
single lane the whole way. It's a single lane from here to
The
Newburgh.
single lane, so, and we did a very detailed analysis, capacity analysis. The single lanes through the town of Marlborough, will function except at the intersection of the Milton Turnpike, where we have 2 lanes, and we maintain the 2 lanes going southbound. We have 2 lanes going through that
And you have a
single
turning lane going into the town.
and the turning lane, 2 lanes southbound plus a turning lane. We maintain that. That's the most critical intersection from a capacity point of view. Once you pass that intersection, there's no need for 2 lanes. The traffic volumes south of the Milton Turnpike are lower than they are north of the Milton Turnpike, where we only have 1 lane.
It's according to what time of the day it is, too.
No, but it's true at the
Going
peak
south,
hours.
You're going to have more in the evening hours than you are.
In the
and
evening.
more, you're going to have more going north.
Right.
In the morning. Yes,
Right.
that's the way it is.
Right, but the traffic volumes north of the Milton Turnpike in the afternoon are the highest in that corridor.
In the afternoon. In the
Yeah.
morning, it's the highest going north.
Right. And it's
It's just
higher.
because that's where everybody's going. The Hudson Bridge, they'll cross to Poughkeepsie. It changes from, you can't compare the morning and the evening as the same. You can't tell me that.
We looked at both. We have the statistics for both.
I
And
understand.
they're in the report. The point is that there's no need for 2 lanes southbound, south of the Milton Turnpike intersection, from a capacity point of view.
And another thing I would like to ask you, because I've been here for 11 years, and you said something about DOT building something? Well, how many years did we wait for them to just put a light in? How many years did we wait for it? What are you talking about? How many years down the road is this roundabout, you think, is even feasible to build? That they're going to pay to build it?
Yeah. No,
He doesn't
you're
have the
right.
answer
You're
to
right.
that.
I'm just
We're
saying,
all.
I know I love plans,
Yeah.
but I like feasible plans that I know we can accomplish.
Well, you're right, and we struggled with that, and I think the report that we developed have feasible improvements that are not so expensive.
That we can get done.
Yes.
Like you're saying how expensive it
And
would be to
the-
put a roundabout. Well,
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to hear about that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree.
It's just suggested.
I understand, but you know how I am. If I can't do, I don't suggest.
Well, I think they're like-
I'm talking to him, I'm not talking to you.
No, you're right, and we mention it as a long-term improvement,
And what would be the short-term?
assuming that DOT can have the funding.
And what would be the short-term improvements that you said that we can actually?
Short-term improvements at that intersection is to improve the pedestrian crossings. There's no pedestrian light. There's no pedestrian signal head. So that would be a short-term improvement that's not too expensive that DOT.
There's already a
hopefully-
light there.
Yeah. But the other short-term improvement that we suggest is the lane reconfiguration, because that's just restriping. And that's something that DOT has to do when they repave 9W. So we're talking about the 1.9 miles long segment that's today 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes
But you
southbound.
wouldn't leave the one going up the hill where McLaughlin.
Correct. We do maintain a passing lane,
Going up.
go north, and also there will be one going south. So there will be a passing lane, yes. And that's, we hope that DOT can do that because it does improve the feel of this character, it controls the speeds, and it's not going to reduce the time that it takes to drive from north to south to any,
Still looking at one lanes going to Newburgh, it does reduce the time there.
Yeah, but we looked at every intersection, and that change does not affect it.
Okay.
And the other thing we need to remember, traffic capacity does not decrease when you reduce the speeds. Traffic capacity increases with lower speeds.
So you're going to put a single lane and reduce the speeds, all the way up to no.
Well, the speeds will decrease kind of naturally.
I'm talking about the speed limit.
The speed limit should probably be decreased from 55 to 45 or 50, yes. 55 is too high for a corridor like this. We have, look at the parkways, the tectonic parkways, 55 miles per hour. How can this road, especially through the Milton industrial area, where we have a lot of driveways, that should not be marked as 55 miles per hour. That's too fast. That's too high for that type of road.
It's not an easy road to drive either, especially when it's raining.
Eddie, you're done?
Huh?
You done?
Not yet. I said I was, and he kept talking.
I just wanted to ask. I agree with a lot of the study. Some of the things I don't agree with, but I don't personally like roundabouts. Like I'll be one of those guys that say I don't typically like them. I don't know if we'll ever get one, but I guess they do work. I would agree with Alan that the corridor in the center is where the most property that's available to actually expand for business. So I'm a little concerned that we're saying just in the hamlets. I understand the hamlets, we have to grow out from the hamlets. But I would agree that if we're going to reduce the lanes down to single lanes in certain areas is a good thing, because we have this issue in the town as we're a drive-through town. And the speed and everything that you're talking about, 55 miles an hour, people are driving by so fast they don't see our town. So I think if we do reduce the speed a little and we do change the lanes to single lanes, maybe people will slow down and look around. But I also think that's a good spot to actually have businesses on that section, because they would slow down and it would be a single lane, and they actually would see that there's property there and a possibility of a business going there. So I would disagree with that part of the plan, that I think there could be development in that section of 9W. But overall, I appreciate it. I think it's a good overall plan. There's a lot of concerns we have with turning lanes in our community. I think that's one of the biggest issues on 9W right now. I'm not for traffic lights that much because I think it actually slows traffic down. But turning lanes actually definitely help. But overall, I think it's a great plan. I thank you guys for doing it. And I would hope, and this is a big hope, that DOT would actually adopt this and actually do something for our town. Because as people know, we get patchwork, but we don't actually get the repaving that we really need. And I know everybody on this board is 100% behind that, and hopefully we could get some resolution out of them. But thank you.
Yeah, George, I thank you as well, and Maureen. And just to Eddie's point, and yeah, roundabout, I agree. Eddie's probably quite a bit down the road. But there were, if you look at the report, there's like 39 specific recommendations, I think. So there's some low-hanging fruit, simpler things that we can do, that we can work on. At the same time, we keep the pressure on DOT and our local politicians to help us get the funding, so to do the reconfiguration work.
And as I said earlier, I think even though there may be different opinions about certain elements of the study, having the resolution will help getting DOT on board. Because DOT is in a position, they have limited funding. They're not going to go and improve conditions in a place where they don't get the local support. So they are looking for the local support. To do improvements.
Well, George, I just want to thank you. I thought the report was fine. Roundabouts scare me a little bit because of my age. I don't know what it is about it, but going in, not knowing where to go, but I could see maybe in the future, maybe not in my lifetime because of, DOT, you suggested the funding. But a lot of stuff could be done with repaving and repainting, and I think that's a great thing to show. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I also would like to thank you for answering my questions. I appreciate what you've done. I just want some verification. That's all I was asking.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? James, come on up. And then after James, Mr. Woodward. Nice to see you, Bill. Again.
I too think it's a very good report. Thank you very much. Brian there will know me as his worst nightmare dealing with the safe routes to schools, because I went through that line by line, and unfortunately I did not get a copy of this to do the same thing, but there's a lot of good stuff in here. In terms of roundabouts, good place to go look at a very nice one is by Vassar College. They have a whole string of them. They work nice. They did a great job there, helps the pedestrians. It used to be a 4-lane speedway through there. That's a very good place to look at them. There's certainly things in there that I don't agree with, things that are not got left out. But overall, I think it's a good plan, and I think, you know, getting through with the repaving and the restriping will be very good. There is one, not correction, but clarification that I think needs to be made, and that deals with page 67 in the first implementation plan, which talks about reducing the speed from Birdsville to Purdy from 40 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. And actually, if you look at this picture, I drive this every day, it's already 30 miles an hour from about 25 feet south of Purdy. So it's just, I just don't want you to go to DOT and start out with the wrong foot. Now, you may want to move that to the other side of Purdy, okay, to help the Purdy residents. I'm sure they would love to have the speed reduced right in front of their intersection, because they do have problems getting out. But I just wanted to point that specific one out so you don't get on the wrong foot with the first implementation.
Thank you, James.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Woodward, would you like to come up? Yes, please.
You're on the camera, Mr. Woodward.
You could just state your name for the...
William Woodward. Scott had a very good point. 9W is an arterial. It's an artery between Newburgh and Highland. Most of the traffic, the 20-some-odd thousand vehicles a day, go through the village of Marlborough and through the village of Milton on their way north and south. There is a tremendous blockage of traffic between the hours of 3 and 5 in the town of Newburgh, and a lot of us go to the town of Newburgh. As far as traffic restraints, the traffic lights that we have in town at Young's Motors at Milton Turnpike and the one at the school enable people that have these side roads that go onto 9W a break in the traffic so they can safely pull out into 9W. So even though we don't like traffic lights, and they are a restraint to traffic, they are a safety factor as far as I'm concerned, to allowing people not to shoot out into the highway by just waiting a few minutes. You have a break in the traffic. Mr. Koenig had a very good point with the parking. Now, many traffic studies have been done over the last 30 years. One of the problems seems to be the parking in front of the Raccoon Saloon. If there was 4 parking spaces eliminated, this comes up at every study, traffic would not be bogged down for people making a left-hand turn to go up King Street. There'd be room for them to go around. Now, why hasn't that been done in 30 years? There's no parking in the village. Mr. Koenig is absolutely right. So what are you going to do, penalize that business because there's no parking? No. And the Route 9W corridor is the only reasonable place we have in the whole township of Marlborough for any type of development. And we need commercial industrial development because the residential growth in Marlborough is happening so fast, and the residential growth does not pay the school taxes. You can't have 2, 3, 4 people in one family when it's costing $26,000 a year per student. The residential houses can't support all that. Now, as far as the zoning goes, there's a zoning problem in the town of Marlborough. It's been in existence for 40, 50 years. Every new development has a cul-de-sac. And if you'll look at an aerial map, there's another cul-de-sac within a quarter of a mile in the opposite direction. Why can't these roads be connected together? that would eliminate a lot of the traffic coming one way to get onto 9W to go to Newburgh. There'll be an alternate route to take them up to Latintown Road or Ridge Road. So there's a lot of sense in what you say, but living here in Marlborough, a cul-de-sac, you're gonna have to destroy too much property, destroy too many buildings, and there's no money to buy out all these people that have the property to make a cul-de-sac. The same thing happens if Orange County was to make 9W a 4-lane highway. I plotted that out personally. You know how many houses and buildings and telephone poles would have to be moved to make a 4-lane highway? But you're right, the capacity is in, last time I checked, about 23,000 cars a day. Okay? That's a lot, but it's going through. They're not stopping and buying. We need more commercial and industrial development along the corridor. We can't forget that. So lowering the speed limit, yes. The capacity, we're not going to be able to do much about the capacity. We're getting a lot more truck traffic on the highway. That causes problems. Okay? DOT recommends a 30-foot curb width for trucks to come out of the highway. When I built the Riverview Drive area, I deliberately went 36 feet, and the truck still jumped the curb. Okay? 36 feet is not enough for truck traffic. But you're absolutely right with the wide open spaces like in front of the town hall. There's room for anybody to come in any direction in and out of that parking lot. And that causes a problem, especially on Monday where we have the motor vehicle bureau there. So that's all I got to say. I agree with the board. The board is very smart because they live here and they see what's happening. And I pay very serious attention to what these gentlemen are saying. Thank you, sir.
Just to,
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to expand on Mr. Woodward's comments, my shop was formerly located in Hyde Park, New York. We would have commercial trucks come in before they became fire trucks. The driving service was basically a commercial service. That's a vehicle of commerce. So they would actually use their GPS with commercial vehicles based on their height and weight and everything like that. To get from Orlando or Ocala, Florida, and come up and get to Hyde Park, their GPS specifically told them to get off 84 onto 9W, come through our town, get on the bridge in Poughkeepsie and proceed to northern Dutchess County. When, in theory, it should have been told to stay on the New York State Thruway, come down US 299, come down 9W, and get on the bridge. So that's why we're seeing a lot of this commercial traffic come through, is because that's what the commercial GPSs are, that's what the truck drivers are told to do. So, but if we were to maybe shrink the lanes down and reduce the speed limit, then the updated GPS apps would say that's not the quickest route. This is the quickest route. New Paltz 299.
Alan, there's no easy solution. The village of Wappinger Falls.
You can't.
50, 60 years ago, Route 9 went through the village of Wappinger Falls.
Yeah.
How did they correct that situation? By moving Route 9 a mile and a half to the east. That's how they corrected their situation. We're in a similar situation.
But then they put up about 13 traffic lights, which made everything
Well,
go slow.
everything
and
just
that's-
grew. That just encouraged the outrageous growth that you see in that area. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I like your comment about the smart board we have here, Mr. Woodward. It's the first one we've heard.
Okay, so we can move on. Now, if I could just go to reports of the department, I think that's where we are.
Yeah, we are.
Yep. So, moving on, supervisory report, December 2018. Conference call with consultants, with Councilman Baker and Ulster County Planning to go over the 9W corridor, which you just heard, the final draft report. I attended Cornell University final report presentation at the Scenic Resource Inventory at the Milton train station. Thank you, Howard, for all your hard work in doing that. Attended a annual Milton Holiday celebration. Thank you, Alan, for putting that on. That was great. Grandchildren loved it. Met with representatives of the New York State DOT and State Senator-elect James Skoufis to discuss Marlborough projects. And at that meeting, we discussed the 9W corridor study and previous studies with the 9W Western Avenue, and also the Chestnut Petroleum project. was a great meeting, a lot of good ideas, and we're moving forward with all three of them. It all depends on the DOT. Like George says, the first thing they'll tell you is they don't have the money. The second thing they'll tell you is they don't have the manpower. It's probably true. Attended an event at the Milton train station to encourage early reading, and I thank Celeste Ricciardone for doing that. Howard, you filled in for a couple of times. I had to had a family matter to take care of. The UC Ulster County Transportation Council, we'd like to say what happened there. And also, you had a meeting with Danny Monticello about the gateway.
Right. So Ulster County Transportation Council, which is headed by Mr. Slack back there, and we usually try to attend. We're voting members of that, and I attended the meeting, was it last week, Brian? Yes, and the thing that was pertinent to Marlborough that was discussed there was the widening the shoulder between the high school down into the hamlet of Marlborough along Western Avenue. And that's been on the on your tip, I guess you call it, your agenda basically for a long time. And I think we've decided that maybe we should take another tack to try to get that project done. And I think there was a meeting. Did you discuss that? Okay. So I don't know the outcome of that meeting, but basically take it off of the tip, the transportation improvement plan list of projects, and try to get it done some other way locally through Ulster County and the town. Okay. Is it? Sure, sure. You may, because you know all this stuff better than I do.
Very briefly, the Transportation Improvement Program is a listing of all federal aid highway projects in Ulster County. And for some time, the Western Avenue project, which is, the road is owned by Ulster County, there's been a PIN, an official federal aid project, listed on the tip for, I believe the total funding amount is $800,000. It is an inadequate amount. I think all parties agree to that fact, that it would not be enough money to construct the project as it's been currently scoped. And so as a result, it's been pushed out. Every time we update the tip, which happens every 3 years, the project just keeps getting deferred in lieu of other projects. South Putt Corners Road, Route 299, New Paltz, those are two similar vein projects that DPW is dealing with. So, what to do now? We're in the midst of our next tip update. We're going to have a discussion with the Commissioner of Public Works and the members of the town board, Supervisor Lanzetta. Very shortly, I'll be setting up that meeting to have that discussion, hopefully before Christmas time.
Yeah, I will say that project that was done on South Putt Corners Road from New Paltz High School, right, Brian, over to 299. I mean, it was a beautifully done project. It's great. We're not asking for anything quite that expansive, just a widened shoulder so students could walk back and forth to the high school a little bit more easily. But, yeah.
The design and right-of-way costs are very expensive as well for these projects, so that's a concern. We want to try to find a solution that improves the safety of the function of the roadway, but also is within line with available dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
And the other item that Al asked me to speak about is, as the board members know, we've been working on this plan to create a gateway signage somewhere in the hamlet of Marlborough. It's been suggested in your plan as well. And we had looked at the St. Mary's parking lot in Marlborough as a potential site for that. And that parking lot is really made up of two pieces of property, one that's owned by St. Mary's to the north, and then the southern piece that's about a third of an acre that's owned by Tilcon, and they lease it to the church for parking. The town was also interested in developing some trails on property just to the east of the St. Mary's parking lot. There's property owned by Tilcon, and they leased to us a 30-plus acre plot, plus that 0.3 acre plot that is now part of St. Mary's parking lot. So we had a double lease situation on that 0.3 acres. So that caused the church some concern. And basically, the discussion I had with Mr. Marticello, who sits on the board of the St. Mary's, was to get that situation straightened out. You can't have a piece of property leased to two entities. It either has to be leased to the town or leased to St. Mary's. So that's one thing. And then, so we probably should have some discussion about that as a board. And then the other thing is the other idea of creating, and Mr. Zambito in the back knows about this, creating a stone wall along the edge of St. Mary's parking lot with ingress and egress to kind of make that look nicer with maybe possible lighting and so forth. That is something that I don't know that St. Mary's is really interested in at this point either. So again, we can discuss that further as a board, but that was it was a frank, good discussion with Mr. Marticello, but that's kind of where that is. And I'll update you guys a little bit more later if you want me to, but that's where we are.
You did mention about a letter coming from Father Tom to...
Yeah, Mr. Father Tom, I believe, will be sending you a letter expressing their concerns in that letter. The other thing is we wanted to use, so that trail that we'd like to develop in the Tilcon property, which is locally referred to as Christian Hill area, there is a strip of property that of that 30-plus acre piece that comes right out to 9W. So we could possibly develop that as an entryway to the trails and have a parking area back there. So we don't really need the 0.3 acre parking area for that. So we're making a little progress, but it's a lot of give and take at this point.
The 0.3 acre parcel is what's holding up the gateway sign also?
I think once we get that resolved, who has ownership, then maybe we can talk about the gateway sign. But I get the impression that they're not really interested in anything along in that parking lot. They like the way it is now.
The gateway sign is going to obviously be on the corner of the property, right? It's not like it's like in the middle of their property.
You wouldn't think
but
so.
That is the parcel of property that we're talking about, the 0.3
Oh, yeah.
acres?
Yeah.
0.3.
So,
Yeah, a portion of that.
Portion of it.
Yeah. So I think we have to get the ownership, the double lease situation resolved before we can go back and have if that's even possible, have another discussion with them about the gateway sign.
So basically, we're waiting for the letter from Father Tom.
Yeah.
Because he's the priest in charge, and he'll determine if they want to keep the lease or if the town could have the lease. If the town has the 0.3 lease, then we could do the gateway. If the church decides not to, then we have to look for it maybe further up south, or look for the different area.
Or maybe further north towards the cemetery area, which we do own that property. So something to discuss.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corcoran.
Building Department's monthly report, November 2018. Certificate of occupancy, 6. Request for information, 10. Building extensions, 5. Fire inspections, 4. Fire calls, 1. Stop work orders, 2. ZBA applications, 1. Order to remedy, 16. Complaints, 31. Burn permits issued, 7. Building permits, 25. 2 one-family, 4 electrical, 2 furnaces, 1 demolition, 1 tank removal, 2 wood stoves, 2 pools, 3 sheds, 2 roofs, 1 barn, 4 additions, 1 carport. Estimated cost of building, $910,071. Monthly receipts, certificate of occupancy, 900. Request for information, 1,000. Building extensions, 500. Building permits, $4,984. Fire inspection fees, 200. ZBA escrow fees, 700. ZBA applications, 300. Burn permits, 25, for a total monthly receipt of $8,609. Total miles, 1311. Gas usage, 110 gallons.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Appreciate it. You know, Brian, I wouldn't be, if you like to leave, you could leave. You don't have to.
We are going to pass.
It might be a long evening, so I know you. I don't know if you drove up or you took the train. We could wait. They don't have to. We do now. Yeah. We will be addressing the resolution tonight, and thank you very much for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you. Chief.
Activity summary for the month of November 2018. Motor vehicle accidents, personal injury 4, fatal 0, property damage 20, accidents not requiring report 13 for a total of 37 for the month. Summons is issued, vehicle and traffic 30, parking 1. Complaint activity, total bladder entries 328 with a total arrest of 14. Telephone calls handled 1,725. Overtime is attached for the full part-time officer and grant overtime. Full-time dispatcher overtime, 24 hours. Part-time dispatcher overtime, 56 hours, holidays. Police mileage, 11,976, with a fuel consumption of 1,018.746 gallons.
Any questions for the chief?
Just one question. Are people driving more carefully now? Because you really get a big decrease.
Yes, we've done such a fine job.
Is that what you're doing?
I'm thinking the weather's turning a little cold. It was a holiday month.
I mean, over the whole
Less
course,
activity. for
even
the
year
2
to
months.
date, you're like 2/3 of what you were last year.
Yeah, a lot of the difference in money is the monies we receive in grants. That has decreased a little bit. So ticket numbers are down a little bit. Specifically for the month of November, I just think the weather got a little colder and the activity on the guys has decreased a little bit.
I was just hoping they were driving better.
Yeah, I'd like to say that, but I don't know.
Okay.
I do not have Andrew's report, Supervisor Lanzone. Do you?
I think it's in here.
Well then,
I'm going.
I can't.
So when we get to that, can you come up and?
You can read it off again.
You can read it off the. Oh, you can't see it.
I'll give you one of ours.
Okay.
I'll read it.
We'll read it. We'll take care of it.
Time to wear your glasses.
Where's your glasses? Okay, good place. Alan, would you like to read Mr. Appler's report?
Yes. Monthly report for November 2018. Roads, we did catch basins and pipe end patrols as needed around the township. We repaired a ditch line on Old Post Road. We milled out and repaved bad sections of blacktop on Garrity Road and Mahoney Road. We started cleaning leaves out of our ditch lines on 11/14, and this will continue until we are completely done. Approximately a month worth of work. We did our coal patch repairs as needed. We cleaned out ditch lines on Willow Tree, Mulberry, and Old Indian Roads. Sidewalks, we completed pouring and finishing the 3 sections of sidewalk on Grant Street. We repaired the blacktop around them, and the Grant Street sidewalks are now complete. Snow and ice, we had a snowstorm on 11/15 through 16 with a forecast of 2 to 3 inches. We ended up with 8 to 12 inches of wet, icy snow that was extremely slippery during rush hour. Water department, we assisted the water department with a water main break on Albertson. Then we repaired this with blacktop. Fuel use, gas, 288.358 gallons, diesel, 1,257.439 gallons, respectfully submitted, Gail Appler Sr.
Thank you, Alan.
Any questions?
All I could do is say about the sidewalks. They finally finished the sidewalks for this year. As you know, we have a $250,000 grant from Frank Scartatos to do the sidewalks. I did all the billing for the report to send to DASNY to recoup some money, and we have enough money to finish what we started out, especially on West Street, to continue all the way to the library. So I think we have about $100,000 left, so that's good news.
It's great news. Great, Charlie.
You have to go to the agenda.
I am on the agenda.
Charlie, how are you, Charlie?
Charlie, can you read that? Can you read that?
I can read that if I have to.
Monthly report for November, water consumption totaled 14.7 million gallons. This was a daily usage of 490,000 a day. Compared to last month, which was 16.02 million gallons, which is a daily usage of 516,000 gallons a day. Compared to a year ago, which was 12.6 million for the month, which was a daily usage of 422,000 for the day. Water mains, we repaved an 8-inch water main on Albertson Road. We also repaved the road from the water main break with the help of the highway department. Hydrants, we repaired hydrants on Old Indian Road. Service lines, we had to repair service lines on Western Avenue. Valve repair, we repaired and replaced valve boxes on Old Post Road, Jonathan Place. Cleaned snow around all the town facilities. I also gave a tour of the water district to Councilman Howard Baker. Closings, we had 2. Markouts, I had 30. Gallons of gas used, 245. And the mileage for the month, 1180.
So I want to thank Charlie for the tour. The reason I asked for it, we were talking about the water lines in the district, and I'm a visual learner, so I have to go out and see what you're talking about. And so it was great. And he gave me a tour of the Newburgh treatment plant as well, which I had not been to, and that was fantastic. It's very impressive. So thank you, Charlie.
Charlie, how are we doing with our estimates on the expansions that we're talking about?
We spoke about that.
You did? You might have spoke about it, but you didn't speak to us about it.
I received an estimate from one contractor. He gave me a price of about $135 to $150 per linear foot. This would be all material, excavation, and hydrants also would be added, but the price range was about $135 to $150,000. He asked if you did do it, put it out to bid, it would be a lot easier to give an estimate to everybody, but this is what he figured it would.
So you're talking about the, up at the turnpike, or you're talking about Crossroad?
Anything. This is,
Oh, okay, in general.
In general was going from Crossroad on Plattekill Road to Bellismo, almost to Bellismo Drive or Orchard View Road, which is about 1,200 feet, and he said it would cost approximately.
That was a loop you're talking about.
135 a linear foot, basically.
Yeah, that's the minimum.
Yeah.
And he said up to 150.
Times how many feet was it, Charlie?
1,200.
The loop.
Right.
And then Milton Turnpike, what was that?
It's the same, he wants the same price.
But what's the length?
How far was that? That was 1,000 feet.
Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
So 300,000.
Colleen?
About 3, somewhere. 162, so that's... Yeah.
Where'd you get?
Town Clerk Monthly Report for November 2018. Burn permits 2 for $115. Conservation 15 for $108.14. Dog licenses 20 for a total of $115. Transfer station permits 2 for $90. Punch cards 30 for $1,350. Marriage licenses 3 for $52.50. Building department fees 2 for $18,776.90. Fire fees 2 for $2,080. Zumba 2 for $300. Accident reports 13 for $70. Certified copies 4 for $140. Dog warden fees 1 for $110. Park fees 1 for $300. Jiu-jitsu 1 for $150, for a grand total of $23,757.54.
Any questions for Colleen?
Nope. Thanks,
Thank you,
Colleen.
Colleen. Okay. This is Mr. Falco's report. Report on the Marlborough wastewater treatment plant for November 2018. The average flow meter reading to the plant was 185,000 gallons per day. The design capacity is 175,000 per day. We used 100% of capacity. The process is meeting all other speedies requirements. Lab results show that we removed 90% of the BOT and 89% of the solids during the month. The Milton wastewater treatment plant, the average flow to the Milton plant during November 2018 was 44,000 gallons per day. This is 80% of design capacity, which is 55,000 gallons per day. We showed 99% of BOD and 95% of TSS removal. The process is working well, meeting speedies requirements. The high flow for the Marlborough plant was due to the heavy rains that normally during the month of November, all systems were able to operate properly. So, as always, it says overall bulk wastewater treatment plants are in good working order, but are getting old. The collection system is being monitored and maintained by Charlie Maggio and the Water Department. If you need any additional information, please do not hesitate to call Mr. Falco. The Town of Marlborough Dog Warden. Oh man, this is really small. We received the total. Oh, there you go. Thanks, Scott. Now I'm totally. Okay, I got you.
The other way. Yeah, ours aren't touchscreen.
Bear with me. Okay. There we go. Thank you. We received a total of 11 calls this month, including 5 calls to service from Marlborough PD, State Police, and Ulster County Sheriff. Responded to 3 active complaints and/or cases which are now closed or resolved. We currently have 1 open case that have been addressed but are ongoing or unresolved. We impounded 1 dog this month. This dog impounded because the owner was being transported by ambulance for emergency medical treatment. The dog was picked up by the owner's family. There were 0 dog bites reported this month. We currently have 0 dogs in the kennel. We have 0 cases in the Marlborough Justice Court at this time. We had successfully annual inspection with Joyce Mills and AMELS, New York State Department of Agriculture and Market. Please see attached boarding contract, and we could discuss that. I'm going to have Andrew come in at the next meeting and explain the whole contract to you. And he wishes everybody a Merry Christmas. All right, next up is the Assessor's Office. Would you like to take care of that?
Sure.
Howard? I mean, Ed.
To Town Board, from Cindy Hilbert. Our office processed 33 real property sales transfers. We worked on 5 property tax estimates. We verified the sales records for the month. Our data collector has been sketching new construction and building permit information this past month. We have begun processing our exemption renewal applications.
Howard?
Yep.
Planning Board.
Planning Board for November 2018, meeting on November 5th, 2018. Attendees were Chris Brand, Manny Cauchi, Steve Clark, Cindy Lanzetta, Joe LaFaro, Ben Trapani, and Joel Troncali. They approved the stenographic minutes of 9/17, 10/1, and 10/15. Approval for the above minutes was granted unanimously. First on the agenda was Paul Gladman. Due to a technical error on the part of the applicant, a second public hearing for this project was opened and closed. A seeker negative declaration, a notice of determination on non-significant was pre-approved via resolution. Resolution of conditional approval was also granted. The second item on the agenda was, Ridge Road, Marlborough preliminary site plan. The applicant reappeared to discuss interpretation of the previously established drainage district on site. Applicant was provided with 2 options to secure approval for the proposed subdivision. Number 1 was to maintain the appropriation of cost to 1/8 the total cost for each lot, with the larger lot paying a larger percentage towards their drainage district costs, or 2, apply to the town board to change the terms and conditions of the established drainage district to allow each lot in the subdivision to pay 1/5 the cost. The applicant will reappear at a later time. Third item was Marlborough and Hudson Circle, Marlborough site plan revote on revised conditions of approval. The board approved an amended resolution to update the conditions of the previously approved site plan. Next meeting was November 19th, attended by Manny Cauchi, Steve Clark, Joe LaFaro, Ben Trapani, Joel Troncali. On the agenda, first one was Milton Turnpike Solar Farm, 132 Milton Turnpike. The applicant's representatives have reappeared to update their progress. The site has received the necessary zoning change from the town board and submitted an update application. Issues regarding visual impacts of the project, fencing, and on-site landscaping were discussed. A pilot agreement for the proposed project was also discussed. The board moved unanimously to declare intent to act as the lead agency for this project. The applicants will return to a public hearing on December 17, 2018. Next item was Ridge Road Marlborough preliminary site plan. The applicant reappeared, agreed to the town attorney's recommendation to establish a legal covenant to maintain the appropriation of costs to 1/8 the total cost for each lot, with the larger lot paying a larger percentage towards the previously established drainage district cost. The applicant also agreed to have the water services be increased to 1 inch as per the water superintendent's recommendation. Ulster County approval for the septic system is still outstanding. The applicant will reappear on December 17th, 2018. Respectfully submitted, Chris Brand, Chairman, Town of Marlborough Planning Board.
Thank you, Howard.
Yep.
Okay, now we go to report of committees. Recreation Committee? No report? Okay. Alan, anything on the Emergency Management Preparedness Committee?
No big changes, no. I just got to change the name of some chiefs. There's the elections went off, so those new chiefs, I'll put them on there.
Okay. The CAC is going to meet in January. We did receive from the Ulster County Planning their recommendations as far as the design standards, so we'll review those. Milton Train Station Foundation, they did hire an engineer to look at the front of this train station for paving. There's some engineering work that has to be done there for drainage and stuff like that. So they're committed to do that. Milton Landing Citizens Committee.
No, everything's going good.
Okay. On the Milton Landing Citizens Committee, we actually finished the trail. We finished the steps, the stone steps, thanks to the Jolly Rovers. They gave me a list of all the people that helped. There was like 500 volunteer hours on that project, just for the steps, not alone with the volunteer hours, a lot of volunteer hours put in by local people, the fire department, Milton Fire Department, for the trail itself. So that was a grant, that was a Greenway grant. It was for $4,000. I just finished all the paperwork and submitted that, and I got the okay that that's good. The only thing I have to do for the 10% is take some pictures and a little brief summary of what we did. So I couldn't take pictures because there were all these leaves on top of the walkway. So I went there and blew all the leaves away. So hopefully tomorrow I could go and take pictures so I could submit that, and we'll get the full $4,000. Marlborough Hamlet Economic Development Committee.
There is a meeting of that committee on Wednesday night at 7 p.m., I believe, at John DeMarco's office in Marlborough.
Okay. So that's an open meeting. Anybody could come to that
That's a public meeting. Anybody can attend that, certainly. Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you have any interest, please.
There's not a lot of room in that building, but certainly it's open.
We could always move it.
We can. To your house.
Yeah, not a problem. Meet me in Marlborough. I think they're having potluck at the...
Tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night at the barn, Buttermilk Barn at potluck. And let's see, Hamlet of Milton Association Committee.
They actually put on the Santa Claus for, what we did over the weekend. And it went great. Vivian and Stephanie really did a great job. They had a tremendous turnout even with the weather. They're, thankful everybody showed up and thankful that they don't have to do anything till spring. So
Yeah.
See everybody at the pop party, I guess.
I thought it was great, especially the snow.
Yeah, those are a hit. We got
the
two
kids
of them.
really love that.
They got 2 of them this year because we had one last year, so kept them dancing. It was fun.
And on the Transfer Station Review Committee, anything, Howard?
No, nothing to report.
Thanks to Gail Appler, they went up to the transfer station and cleared the wells that have to be inspected, and got a note from Gail saying that they noticed some deterioration in some of the covering of the landfill. So I text Noel Russ to see who I should have look at, to address that problem. We definitely don't want that to happen. So basically, they're going to test the wells tomorrow, and then hopefully Noel will give me somebody to see who is the proper engineer or firm that take care of that problem that Gail saw.
Well caps or
No, it's not the well cap. It's actually the fabric that holds the landfill. Yeah. So some of the fabric has deteriorated in certain places. So we need to address that.
Yeah.
If anybody, I think we're going to meet with, if Gail's going to, I'm not sure what time, either 9 o'clock or 1:30 tomorrow, if you want to go up there and take a look at him. Show him, so you see what he's talking about. I know you guys that work for a living, it's tough.
Okay, let's go to old business. Sale of Tomvac property. So we know where what happened there. The people, whatever, people that voted not to sell it. So
I make a motion to remove A from old business. And I'll second it.
Sale of Tomvac. I agree. What would you like to put in there? Anything about Tomvac?
No, this time.
Not yet.
The rehabilitation of Tomvac, a $250,000 grant or memorandum for Tomvac, anything?
No.
No plans yet.
We should discuss about Tomvac and the future of Tomvac. How about the future of Tomvac?
How about plans for Tomback?
Plans for Tomvac. That sounds good. Is everybody with plans for Tomvac that would go probably under old business, or you want to put it in the new
That would have
business?
to be under new business, wouldn't it?
Okay. So I need a motion to take it out of old business and put it in new business and rename it Plans for Tomvac.
I made the motion. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None being said, moved. Design standards of Route 9W Corridor Overlay District. Like I said, that's in the process with the CAC. Hopefully by January we'll end up finishing that work. The LWRP, that's just about wrapped up.
What's left on that?
Can we remove B? I mean, that's what we just got.
Yeah, right?
No.
No, D.
No,
D.
B is,
D would
I
be
mean,
it,
D,
right?
I'm sorry.
well, B,
We gotta adopt the resolution.
I like to remove a lot of stuff, but I guess we got to go according to order here. So we're talking about the LURPS project.
yes.
Uh,
That still not closed officially yet?
Not really a close officially,
Okay.
so I would leave it up there.
Okay.
We're still waiting for the one final payment, and we're waiting for the contract to be signed by Department of State and myself to finish that contract.
Okay.
Route 9W Corridor study, we just heard about that. So Scott, if you'd like to make a motion to remove that?
I'll make a motion to remove letter D, Route 9W corridor study. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So move. Charlie just did a water district improvement. If there are any more questions from the board for Charlie?
I guess the question is, what are we going to do with, so it's about $300,000 if we want to do everything, Charlie? Something like that?
Well, I think that...
Roughly?
I think,
So what are we
I
going to do
think
about
we
that?
have to do is do an RFP and maybe have Dennis Larios involved and see
Well,
what the
let's-
cost might be for that.
Yeah, let's look at it too. I mean, we have a couple different options. I know we discussed about the Milton Turnpike, and then we had a couple different options of
Yep.
actually looping the system at the high school. I mean, Charlie, how hard would it be for you to provide us with a couple maps and just the linear feet that we can all look at, solid on paper, and discuss at maybe a next meeting? Then
So
involve
you
areas.
prefer not Mr. Larios get involved at this point?
Not at this point, no. Let's
Okay.
decide amongst
All right,
ourselves and
okay.
then involve Mr. Larios.
Okay.
All right?
All right, sounds good.
Just so we don't do.
Is that okay,
we don't
Charlie?
do
I
that
mean,
twice.
I'll help you with it if you want to help or whatever. Okay, you understand. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Charlie.
Okay. Water and sewer rates, so we discussed that last time. How you guys feel about it? It's going to be done at the reorg meeting. These are things that are suggested by Chris Wilco, and also when we were audited. So there are a lot of increases, so I don't know what the board's decision on that.
I just, going back to the report from departments, when we got it from Julian, again, and I bring it up every month, that he says they are getting older, you know what I mean? So I know I bring this up all the time, is, does he have any kind of formula we can look at that he knows they're getting older? That's his specialty. Does he have any timeline when they're probably going to have to be replaced? What is going to need to be replaced, what the cost would be, and what maybe we should put into the rate? So it's
But-
not, I don't want to be hit all at once. I don't want to pay for this on a ban or a bond.
Well, I
You know
think
what I
it's, right now, we're just discussing about the sewer and water rates, the condition of the
Well,
sewer plant.
We could put something there because if there's going to need to be replaced or
It
maintenance,
is,
there's
it's
got to be
old,
something
like you
into
said,
that
right.
fee. So,
Right, so the thing that would have to be is, it would be very expensive.
I know,
And
everything's expensive.
the whole thing is that needs somebody, professional guidance, like Dennis Larios and Tony, to sit down and tell us exactly how much it might cost, and that might be something that Dennis could put together for us at a certain amount of charge. I could ask him that.
Ask him that, because I just don't want this to come down to 8 years from now. We get a report that the thing's is going to
No,
completely
I-
fail, and we have to do something right now.
It might be beneficial
keep it
just to have it, because this way, maybe if there's a grant that's going to open.
Exactly.
And, or, you know, a member item that, for infrastructure or something, I could approach it. I agree.
I mean, Tony gave us a whole list of, me and Al, a whole list of recommendations at budget time. So we have a very long list of things that need to be replaced, that he would actually like to see replaced ASAP. But again, there's been no plan as far as cost. Is it actually needed? You know, so I think you're right. I think you might
Yeah.
need to get Dennis involved in looking at this, because just saying you need something and how we're going to do it is two different things.
Exactly. And it just,
And
I
I
don't want to
agree.
be painted into a corner.
I
that's
agree. It's all about the money, so I agree. So I'll do that. I'll call Dennis up tomorrow and ask him, I think the Milton plant should also be looked at.
I think both plants, yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
As far as the sewer rates, which are, that's where the main increase is in the
Right.
sewer rates. My understanding was that we need to do that. We need to get them up to where they should be. Is that right? Is that the understanding of everybody? So,
Yep.
Yeah.
So-
Not much discussion there, I don't think, but
No.
maybe I'm wrong.
That's what we have to do, according to Chris, to get everything, all the revenue balanced out, so.
So do we need to, I mean, do we need to keep this on old business? I think we're all in agreement that this is going to be,
I think I just put it on old business because we really didn't, we tabled it last
Right.
meeting.
Right, no, I
Everybody's going to look at it.
yeah, I mean,
So if everybody agrees with the sewer, water and sewer rates, we could take it off. Do you agree with the
I make a motion to remove letter F for water sewer rates based on the recommendation of the budget officer and the budget committee, that these are the rates that are needed to keep our plants operational.
I need a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So also, we talked about the planning board fees. What was what's your take on that, gentlemen?
That I would like to see what we came up with written down. Somebody probably has it. I don't have it. Or do you have it, Scott? Tommy, do you have
I
it?
have it.
You have it, Al?
We have it.
Maybe
You
that
wanna
that
bring it up?
you don't have to bring it up now. Maybe we should table it for next,
I
do
mean,
we have to make a decision on this for?
No, we don't have to make it tonight, but we should
Okay.
make it before the reorg meeting.
Maybe if we could distribute that again and ask.
I mean, I know we had a healthy discussion back and forth about these
Yeah.
fees, and I know Chris came back with follow-up from the questions we had, and I think that's where we were left off with.
Yep.
It kind of looked like what he recommended falls in line with a lot of surrounding towns.
Right.
Increasing some fees, but we are still lower than majority of the surrounding towns. I don't think his recommendations are out of whack with anything. I mean, I personally think they're okay, but again, I think you're right. I think it's probably a good thing that we
Yeah,
maybe leave
I
that
mean,
one still.
I don't want to prolong it, but I do have it here if you want me to just, or you
I
just
mean, the
want.
thing is, the next meeting is the reorg meeting, so. Oh, we have we have the one meeting. That's right, we do have the one meeting.
Yeah, we have one more meeting, and also we were discussing recreation fees too. So,
I don't know, I would ask you to just send it.
No, I agree.
Yeah, email it around. Yeah.
I'll scan it and send it to you. You have it in your box someplace, but
I know.
I'll do that. Okay. So we can't take that off, so. New business, let's talk about the
The replacement car?
assessor's car replacement. Is there any discussion on that? Are we all okay with that? It's $8,000.
7,900 with a year warranty. It's replacing the 2006 Jeep that we have that has 110,000 miles. We're looking to replace it with a used Ford Edge all-wheel drive. It's a 2010 with 55,000 miles. With a trade-in, I think, Ed, right, it was 7,900 with a year warranty, and this is through Absolutely Automotive. The current car is having a lot of issues as of late. So we have monies in the assessor's budget as of this year still left over. So we, at the budget committee meetings, thought this could be a good time if the board so chose
The only
to
question
do
I
this.
have is that it's not the assessor's car, it's the town car, because it's used for everything
Correctly.
else. It's not, so I would just call
Right.
it town.
It is just a town overall used car.
Right,
We
so if
budget
anyone
it
else
through the
uses it,
assessor's
then we
office,
also
but
use
you're
it.
right. And it actually is used by everybody. This is the spare vehicle for the whole town. But you're absolutely right.
We should use it more.
So I need
We should use
a,
it more.
I need a motion and to purchase this automobile for $8,000 is the voucher is made out for.
I'll make that motion after the.
I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None being said, so moved. The next new business is Judge Jackson's request to change court dates. I have no problem with this at all. It's actually on a Monday where there's a planning board, and it's actually later. It's at 7:30. I think they want to start earlier. Do you have a problem with that? No.
The only question I have, I mean, it's 4 o'clock is what he wants to start.
Right.
I mean, I guess we shouldn't be worried about it, but for people coming in for tickets or that work, is that an issue? I mean, I guess it's not our issue. But, yeah, I mean,
Court date.
well, when
is
they
what
have a
Scott's
court
talking
date,
about, yeah.
typically we had court at the time we had it, because usually it's like after 5 where people get out of work, but, I mean, should we, I mean, it's not really our issue. You got a ticket, you got to come to court, but.
So what if they have, the ones at night, if you issue it that you can't, you have to be after 5, then it has to go to the other court. I mean, that shouldn't hurt anybody either.
That shouldn't be a problem.
I mean, I think it's all right. It just,
Yeah, as long as they can, turn the room over. I mean, I don't think it should be an issue. It's not going to be an issue with your department, right, Jerry? You think, or?
No.
that's a good question, Jerry. These aren't.
Yeah. There's traffic
These
violations.
are just traffic. This is just for,
Yeah, it's every other week, too. It's not every, right.
All right,
Yeah, I think it's just traffic.
hand up.
Oh, the
Hand up.
planning board secretary has a
Excuse me.
question now.
Would you like to come up, Virginia?
If she has to set up and they're still here.
It should be done by 7:30 or quarter to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it takes you about an hour to set up, then?
Well, yeah, because I do the, print out what I have to print out, and I come down here and set up the microphones, rearrange all the chairs.
How long is traffic usually, Jerry? How many hours?
They say they're not going to be that long, so hopefully by 6:30 they'll be done. Would that work? Okay. Or 7 to max? Or is that pushing it? Okay. I've always push it, Virginia, you know. So let's say 6:30. Let me check with them. I'm sure it'll be all right, but I think it's, I don't know why the reason, but it might be a personal reason.
Pardon the pun, could we do it as a trial basis, or?
I think he wants to start the first Monday of January, so.
Okay, but if it runs, we run into an issue with the planning
If we
board,
wanna
it's going to
run-
have to go back to the way it was. I mean, he's going to have to be made aware of that.
I think we could work with them, yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah,
If it works, it works. I'm fine
Yeah.
with it. But I'm just saying that our planning board's going to supersede this.
I
Yeah.
think January 7th he requested, right? January?
I need to know 2 weeks ago that tickets for January that are already written would have been needed to schedule for that Monday.
Exactly.
Because I already have tickets that are.
You're right.
Unless the court is dealing with the reissuance of court dates. I can check with
Okay,
You have to check.
Renee tomorrow.
okay. Okay, if you could follow up, that'd be greatly appreciated. You got a good point.
Yeah, because they probably all got sent out.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's got January 7th, I think, Jerry, that he
Yeah.
wants to start.
That's when he was.
Yeah.
So it might not be the 7th, it might be the fall. Okay,
People plead not guilty to it, they're getting returned court dates with the corrected date. So that's possible.
okay, okay.
So he's going to go VNT on the first and third Monday, but then go court trials on Wednesdays? He's going to keep Wednesdays?
I believe Thursday. I think wherever Judge Jackson, when he has Wednesday, it would be no longer Wednesday, it'd be Thursday and Monday, Monday and Thursday.
All right, so it's Monday VNT, Thursday trial.
Yeah, but he's
I need to know the schedule.
Yeah.
Got the school board
All right.
meeting on Thursday.
No, they do it before
No,
the
it's the-
school board.
yeah.
They have always had it on Thursday. Yeah.
Even if it's a trial.
No, court's Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday and Wednesday, or, oh, wait, sorry, I got things mixed up. So, I'm confused here. So Tuesday is Judge Jackson who wants to move it to Monday.
Right.
And then you have, okay,
Right, but it's 4 days a week.
Right.
But he's only moving 2 days.
that's what he said.
The other one stays Tuesday.
He said he was going to alternate
Monday and Tuesday.
the tickets on 2 alternate Mondays.
And he's going to leave trials on Tuesdays.
Yes,
Alternate, those would be town board meeting nights.
yes. Yeah, right, it will be offset from the town board meeting.
Right, so
Yeah,
it won't affect town.
yeah. Okay.
So Al, we did put Tom back on new business. I mean, I know a lot of people are here for Tom back, so obviously we kind of didn't say much. And I don't think there's much to say is that, the people voted and we respect that vote. We're going to actually look into an actual plan. I don't want people to think that since we didn't say much, doesn't mean we didn't have a lot of discussion already, because I think the board realizes we've had a lot of discussion over the last 3 days through emails about what we want to do, what we want to try to do. And I think we're all on board of fixing Tom back as long as we have a set plan in front of us. And I think the supervisor understands where we're coming from with that.
I do.
So we want to know the cost. We want to know what the renovations would be. Is it going to be a rec and community center? Is it going to be a community center or a rec center? So it's just that we need a real plan to say, let's do this and do it right. If we're going to do it, we don't want to say we're just doing it halfway.
Okay.
We want to do something the right way. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that we're not looking into it. There's been a lot of discussion amongst the board members, And I think in the long run, you'll see us come out with a good plan, and we'll figure out how to finance it, and we'll move forward. But we just need a plan. And we want to have public input, right, Al? That's
Yeah.
the other thing. So we want to have maybe public meetings and maybe form a committee as
I
such.
kind of have a different approach. The approach that I have is I wanted to do a preliminary application for the $250,000, which takes a year. And during that course of the whole contract, you have to, at a certain time, come up with some details. I really don't want to spend any more money, taxpayers' money, on a plan. Like Ed says, this place has been planned to death. So the things that I hear, and you could disagree, is, we want to put in ADA compliant bathrooms. I've been working with Pat Hines from McGooey Hauser, and that's all, the initial proposal. And do the floor, put in a kitchen, and other items that would amount to $250,000. Like Alan says, this is like what you do with grants or member items. You accumulate a story about how you're going to spend the $250,000. It's a long process. I've been doing it for a while now. I think I did 4 or 5. We're moving forward. So I like to see maybe a little bit more movement, maybe having the board approve me working with Pat Hines to just get the preliminary results where the board could actually work on it with me. I just want to get that out because it's been since April of 2018 that before Frank died that I got the letter from the Speaker of the House about the grant, $250,000 grant. I know there probably is, if you did a plan, you could probably add a lot more to it, but I feel that the taxpayers feel that we should do something and not wait a certain time and have a plan that's going to cost them more money. That's my feeling. So I just would like to start the preliminary application for the $250,000, work with one of the board members, Scott, yourself, and Mr. Hines to come up with that $250,000 just to get the ball rolling. If in parallel you want to do a plan and come up with a cost for the taxpayer